All right, folks, very quickly here, I want to go to Nashville, Tennessee. Very, I would say, not too far from where the Waffle House terrorist killed 4 people. On the phone with us is Miss China Douglas. Good morning, Miss Douglas. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm doing excellently. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. I understand you knew one of the victims there who was killed there at the Waffle House?
Yes.
Which one of the victims did you know?
De Silva was the last name.
Oh, De Silva. I see. So, how close are you? Were you able to hear the shots as they rang out there at the Waffle House?
Yes, I did. We heard the gunshots from home in the living room. My sister actually heard them from upstairs and ran downstairs because we thought they were in our neighborhood. It was so close. But, yeah, we did hear the gunshots. And
about how many shots? About how many shots? Can you remember how many shots, or could you even guess how many shots were fired?
I want to say there was more than 7. That's what it sounded like. It was more than 7 gunshots.
Yeah. Well, look, my condolences for your friend who is deceased here. Describe this area. Is it a pretty rural area? Is it quite a few people around? Or is the what?
There actually is. Antioch is a very populated area. The area we live in is a subdivision. It's actually a lot of different houses, and behind our housing is a townhouse residential area, and then there's another apartment complex. But there's so many woods and surrounding the area at the same time, as well as the main road which the Waffle House sat on, which is Murfreesboro Road. A lot of people use that road to get to Laverne, Antioch, Smyrna, and as well as Murfreesboro.
Is it a mixed area, predominantly African American, Caucasian, or what?
I mean, it's a mixture. It's definitely a mixture. I wouldn't say there was too many of one ethnic background, but there's definitely a lot of Spanish, black, white. It's just a mixture of people.
You know, Mr. Shaw, who was a hero in this situation and stopped what I call the Waffle House terrorism going further, he'd indicated they were out looking for a place to eat, and he stopped at one Waffle House that was very crowded. And I got the impression that it was across town or something. Is there another Waffle House somewhere else?
Yeah, there's actually one on Bell Road, which connects to Murfreesboro Road.
Yeah.
It's actually maybe 15 minutes away from the other Waffle House.
Yeah, I know that the police are doing their investigation, but there are some things that one could, that I evaluate, and that's strictly with looking at this many attacks. You know, I look at why this Waffle House, for instance, as opposed to any other Waffle House, and how many other businesses were passed up just to come to this Waffle House. Was it coincidence, or was it something planned? And so consequently, me and my listeners, we evaluate, and that's what we're doing now. So, did you know this guy? Or had you ever seen this guy? Well, he stands about, he's a pretty tall guy. He stands about, what, 6'3", 6'4", Ro?
Right around?
Yeah, he was about 6'4". He was pretty tall. I don't know him. He does not look familiar. I've never seen him in the area. He was said to live in the area where he got caught, which was Summerfield.
How far is that away from the Waffle House?
That is actually like on the corner. Like if you come out of the Waffle House and go right, that's where Summerfield is.
So he's pretty close.
Where Summerfield is.
He's pretty close. Yeah, he was supposedly caught within a mile of the Waffle House there. So, so what's the feel there now? Now this guy has in fact been caught without incident, without being shot, although he had a loaded weapon. And now the judge has placed a $2 million bond on him. What are you hearing around Nashville now that he's been caught? Of course, before that, I guess people were pretty scared. But so now, what's the feeling there?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, what's the feeling there?
Well, mostly people are feeling kind of just unsafe still because it took the police department, honestly, so long to find him. And I really don't understand why it took them so long, because Summerfield is not that big. And it took them about 34 to 35 hours to capture him. And he was in the same area, so he really never left the area. So
yeah,
the place where they said they found him, there was no, like, trees or, anywhere to hide specifically. So he really didn't have anywhere to hide there, so I don't know why they didn't spot him,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things. Although, I hear what you're saying. It would have been wonderful for the police to catch him earlier, but he was the one eluding police, and there's no guarantee someone didn't help him or he get a ride, or, you know what I mean? In other words, when someone is eluding law enforcement, then, needless to say, they may not be as obvious, is the point. And so, I hear you loud and clear. It would be wonderful if they could have, but obviously, this person or had family members in close proximity. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I definitely think he had family there. At first, when he initially made the attack, he didn't have on any clothes. He had on a green hoodie.
Right.
And then they said he dropped the green hoodie when he fled the scene. When they found him, he had on blue jeans and a maroon shirt, and he had a backpack. The backpack had a gun, fully loaded, ammunition, and as well as a flashlight. That's all the stuff they found in the backpack.
Yeah.
So he had an opportunity to go home. We have a friend that lives in Summerfield. She actually said that she saw a man on the line, the mountain line right there, the hill, up by her apartment, and he was just in pants. He didn't have a shirt on.
Right.
So I don't know if that was him or not, but they definitely called that in, and they were able to come through and see if he was still there. He wasn't there anymore. So I don't know if he hid long enough for them to leave, and then he went back to his house and got the rest of his supplies. Or maybe this was something planned where he had that backpack hiding in the woods somewhere where he was able to locate it, change clothes, and still be armed and still have some kind of light where he could see, because I'm guessing he knew he was going to be out at night.
Yeah.
So,
let me ask you, do you know anything about his father? His father is said to own J&J Crane business. You know anything about the Crane business or his father as to whether or not this Ryan King's father has some kind of influence? I mean, because the reason why I'm asking is because it just seems a bit odd that, this guy had some history, even there going up to the White House and having firearms taken away, and then, of course, managing to get those back by way of his father.
Right.
So do you know anything about his family at all?
His father was the one who took. They gave him the weapons initially because he has a license. The father has a gun license, so he was able to confiscate the guns, and he was said to have agreed with.
But I'm asking you. What I'm asking, Miss China, is whether or not you know the family. If you the Ryan.
No, I'm not familiar with the family at all.
And you're not familiar with the business at all, either.
No, sir.
Yeah. The guys, the other victims involved here. By the way, I don't have that over here, Whitlock. That sheet. Do you know the other victims as well, or no?
Well, one of the injured, I think her name is Shamika.
Yeah, you don't know them though.
No, I don't know them per se. She works at a place I used to work at. So she was pretty much getting me temp jobs through her job. So I do know her through that, but I don't know her personally.
Yeah. This guy now has the capability of bonding out, literally, if he has $200,000, or if his dad has real estate, they can put up a property bond. What do you think about that?
I kind of expected it. I mean, I know that the world is crazy today, and as far as him being charged. I didn't think that he was going to be charged heavily because of how they treated him. And when they found him, they didn't shoot him. They weren't trying to attack him or anything. He came willingly to the officer, and, you know, they took him to be treated for his medical illnesses or whatever had happened between the 35 hours that he was out there. They said he was, like, dehydrated and malnourished and all of that. So they fed him, gave him something to drink, and made sure that that he was healthy, and then they took him.
Do you think this was racially motivated? The shooting and so forth.
I can't say. I won't say that. A lot of the news that was circulating in my area was a racially, you know, it was a racial thing. The message was that he was set out to kill black people, but it wasn't just black people that died. There was Hispanic, there was other people that died from other ethnic backgrounds. So I wouldn't say that it was racial.
You know, commentator Sean King had indicated he received a message. Here's a message right here for those who are looking on Facebook, and I know it's in reverse, but, you know, maybe you can use a mirror. It was from a woman who indicated that this guy had gone into a supermarket and was shouting out racial epithets and so forth, and actually grabbed her daughter, and he continued to walk around saying racial things and so forth. Had you heard about that at all?
No, I haven't heard about that at all.
Yeah, okay. All right, Miss China Douglas, again, my condolences for the loss of your friend, and I'm sure you're going to be steadfast. Now, I guess something like this is just very rare around Antioch. You'll hear something like
Correct.
that. Yeah. All right, appreciate you being with us. Thank you so much for agreeing to chat with us this morning.
No problem. Thank you for the time. It was my pleasure.
Thank you, ma'am. Hold on here. Yes, he's arrested without incident, even though he had a semi-automatic handgun on him. Simple question. Some of you have alluded to this. You think there's a double standard with how law enforcement treats, well, deadly, dangerous Caucasian perpetrators as opposed to African-American perpetrators?
Yes.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Could there be an argument that this guy complied?
I'm sure it will be.
So do you think that if, in fact, it was an African-American who had killed four Caucasians, that he would not be given a chance to give himself up?
I would hope so. In this area, possibly more than other areas, maybe, looking at the demographics. But I think the posture going in to look for the individual would be different if they were a person of color. I think it would be a more aggressive, more trigger-prone posture to go after this individual if this guy, if the Waffle House terrorist were black or Latino or possibly East Asian even. I think that the whole posturing of going after this guy would be different. The narrative of him being mentally unstable was painted almost immediately, based, of course, in part by the fact that he, committed this heinous act.
Well, the fact that he was naked, yeah.
Right. But at the same time, the targeting and history were kind of not even highlighted. So I do think.
So he was given the benefit of the doubt. You think?
Yeah, had the right camouflage on.
He was given the benefit of the doubt because he's a Caucasian male. You think?
He's a younger Caucasian male. Yes.
But I mean, folks, look at you. I mean, be it the Charlottesville, what is it? The Charleston terrorist.
Yeah.
I mean, it has happened. There's no doubt about that. And I don't doubt that many of the officers who would pursue this, officers period around Antioch, are probably Caucasian. And look, folks, there's plenty of evidence and plenty of studies to indicate that there is that African American males are seen as more menacing. Why is debatable. And it certainly isn't because African Americans do more heinous acts, I can tell you that. There's no doubt. However, you can't ignore good policing. Be it here, be it Toronto, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So I don't know what happened out in the woods with this guy, but if it's any guy I would have thought who shouldn't have been given the benefit of the doubt. It's this guy. This is cold-blooded killing here. This is I got my AR and I'm going in and I'm shooting up the place. That's what this is. This is no warning. This is just I'm going to go kill someone. And he chose this Waffle House. Maybe because it was closer. I don't know. Sean King thinks it's because of race. Could have been. I don't rule that out. I really don't. Some of you are too hasty to rule it in, and then some of you are too hasty to rule it out, in my view. There are several things here that I see about this. Now, but let's get back to the arrest situation. You know, and the bail. So I understand that there's some guidelines as far as a $2 million bail. I can't see the guy actually getting a bail after killing 4 people.
Well, he's got $2 million. That means if his family or he can come up with $200,000, he walks.
Well, it doesn't have to be $200,000. They can have a property bond. His dad's in business. Okay. Looks like he's in a crane business. I guarantee you they've got acreage.
Yeah, and most of that, now let me ask you this. Even if that acreage, because he's from Illinois,
yeah,
so even if that is not in the state, they can still use that?
Doesn't make a difference. You can pledge your land, which is why it's important to own land, too, by the way.
Yeah. Well, in Nashville, Tennessee law dictates that if a person is a criminal suspect, but except in the case of a death penalty trial, they are entitled to a bond.
Okay, so what we have here is this guy it's not charged as a capital crime, go figure. But I want to go ahead and play the court appearance of this, what I refer to as a terrorist.
Hello? Can you hear me?
I can, sir. Good evening. What's your name, please?
It's Travis Ranking.
Okay. Mr. Rankin, you've got 4 new charges. I'm the magistrate with the Ninth Court, and we're here to tell you your charges and the amount of your bond. Do you have any question about your charges or your bond?
No, I don't.
Okay, sir. You can go back out to the lobby.
You just heard the voice of a guy who is alleged to have killed 4 people. Pretty sure bet that he killed 4 people. I have to say alleged because, after all, I do what I do. He hasn't been proven yet, and he's assumed innocent until proven guilty, Rip Daniels. That's his voice. Sounds like an all-American kid to me. He's got the bangs and everything to go with it. Under any of the ordinary circumstances, I would say he looks like a very tall Opie Taylor.
Don't insult Opie like that.
Do you know who Opie Taylor is?
Of course I know who Opie Taylor is.
I'm just checking. You didn't know what Car 54 was.
I did. You got me on that one. But Opie is Andy's son, and he's a good boy.
So, the judge, by way of Tennessee law, sentenced him to $2 million because it's not a capital crime because he's not been charged with that. You know why he hadn't been charged with that, bro?
Because he looks like Opie Taylor?
No. Well, that one can argue.
No.
I don't know either.
He didn't kill while in commission of another crime. In other words, he didn't.
I see what you're saying, but I raise you this: would not he walking into Waffle House exposing himself be a crime?
That's a very good point. I don't know. I don't know whether that crime would fit the expectation of another crime. In other words, that's a misdemeanor.
Public indecency.
Yeah. However, ladies and gentlemen, if that is the case, the law needs to be changed. The voters of Antioch in Tennessee need to change the law. You kill 4 people. I'm just going to tell you something. That's a foregone conclusion for me. I don't care what he looks like. You kill 4 people. That's a capital crime. And it may be based on just a number of people. If you feel like you're just so libertarian that you want to see, this is why I don't favor the death penalty. There are degrees of guilt.
So if he murdered 5 people, Rip, he would be indeed charged with a capital crime. Because he murdered 4 people, he's only charged with violent homicide.
A violent homicide, yeah. You know, folks, and look, you don't blame the police and don't blame the judge for these laws. It was legislators who were voted for by voters that came up with these laws, folks. If you're going to have a capital crime, then surely that's the play in the mix. Cold-blooded killing is this is premeditated. This guy armed himself, went in, had other ammunition with him. Had Mr. Shaw not stopped him, that would have been more carnage. Horrible situation. You know, Waffle Houses are getting a bad rap this week, too.
Yeah, they are.
They really are. So I'm curious as to what happened and how they came about arresting this guy. Because I suggested he's a terrorist, and I'm still holding to that because that was murder and mayhem. You see, when you read the FBI description of what terrorism is, it is an effort to extort change of government or society. I think a person who goes into that Waffle House and did this is exactly that. He's looking to exert change. You know? Murder and mayhem, anarchy. I don't think it's any less than what he's doing than what Ted Kaczynski did by sending out letters to people he didn't know. Same thing. He wrote his manifesto. It says, "Oh yes, I'm against all of this technology. I'm against all of these capitalism, blah 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 blah." And so he sends out letters to judges and to other individuals who he feels should die, because after all, he wanted to live in the woods and not have any technology and have an outside toilet. Well, how do you want that? I don't know, but that's it's one of the things. There are some people who feel that they get so hung up on what Mother Nature expected us to do that they just consider themselves nothing more than part of the carbon cycle. Just as soon burn their own figure. You know what I mean? Just to get light, bro. Do no harm. Just goes to, you can be whacked out with do no harm. Even a doctor knows that. So I don't see any difference. And this is my observations of what terrorism is. Terrorism is as terrorism does. This guy, also, I don't think he suggested he was autistic. I think you suggested that he had some mental problems. Why? Because he dressed in a pink dress?
Well, because he said he did.
Because he said so, right?
Right.
Oh, I'm crazy.
Well, he did. His run-ins with law goes back to 2016. Alleged attempted suicide by firearm in May of that year. The incident. Which
means what? He blew half his head off, and he wasn't successful.
No, he was threatening to shoot himself.
All right. So in other words, he threatened suicide.
Right.
Yeah.
On
that day.
On that day.
Every other day besides that, he did not.
Right.
Some days you just feel like a bullet to the head.
Well, watch the narrative here. The officer wrote after this, quote, Ryan King was delusional, end quote. He believed, of course, Taylor Swift was stalking him, had hacked his phone. So that sets forward this narrative, just from those three words. Yeah. Ryan King was delusional.
Yeah, he's crazy. That's how it's been now. Be it here, be it. Where was the last one? What was the last one we had?
Parkland.
Parkland, yeah. That's always that narrative.
Crazed man.
Let me tell you, folks, there's no doubt that Vanessa Williams is always trying to call me, and right when I answer, it hangs up. There's no look. I know she is. She's been trying to do that ever since they kicked her out as Miss America.
Yeah.
However, I don't think I'm crazy. It's just that when I go to the phone, she hangs up all of a sudden.
Yeah, she gets cold.
Vanessa? Vanessa, this you? Is this you, Vanessa? It's me. Don't hang up. Oh, you hung up.
On to the next one. She's a very busy woman.
Of course, I can't get away with that because my nose and lips and, of course, my hair.
Well, yeah.
Not to mention this bronze guy that's sitting on YouTube now. Folks, it's just so it's pathetic, it's ridiculous, and although we chuckle about it, it's time to take this very seriously. It really is. So
you have to look at this, and we're talking about how this guy is being defined, and we do this every time this happens, and we show you why exactly these people are in fact terrorists. But I think a part of this discussion should go to the very top, and the fact that the leadership in this country doesn't recognize these folks as terrorists.
Right. That's
4
exactly
people of color were killed at this Waffle House, and not a peep from the president. Technically, that's a mass shooting, Don. I mean, what? That's a mass murder, pal. But you'll go ahead and tweet your condolences to Toronto.
Yeah, speaking of Toronto, this guy, boy, I'll tell you. Terrorist, bro?
Well, probably. The president tweeted about it.
This is not America. This is in Toronto.
Yeah, I didn't think that, they got that upset.
They got in a rented van, and went down and mowed down people in beautiful Toronto. And I'm going to tell you, folks, that if you've never been to Toronto, beautiful, beautiful city in the summertime. I mean, for those who are into that heat thing, you know what I mean? Wintertime I've not gone. Well, I was, at night. Well, sort of, kind of, maybe.
Do you remember?
I mean, yeah, I do. I do remember, but it was Irish. Very young city. A lot of young people. I'm talking, probably the average age there is about 18 years old. I mean, young, beautiful folks, and very clean, very, and a walkable city. Their incredible subway system, and you can see very young kids taking the subway. 2 or 3 kids. When I say very, I'm talking elementary school kids. It's like, yeah, elementary school, and they're taking the subway, they're going to schools. So here you have this guy get into his van, and he drives through, gets on sidewalks, and runs over, there's up to 10 people now dead. Many more injured. He gets out of his van and then points a cell phone at officers. You didn't know that. It was a cell phone.
Is he dead?
No, he's not dead.
He must be white.
He not only did he point a cell phone, but he said, "Shoot me!" In a sounds like a pretty kind of a British, English, French accent. Do you have that? You don't have that? I mean, it was very clear. I thought to myself, what wonderful diction he has to be a criminal that would have to kill 10 people. It's very, very proper, but of course it's Canada. You would expect that. I mean, there's always a decorum for those folks. I mean, so he gets out, he aims it. I mean, he's in the stance, and he has. And keep in mind, we've had some folks in the stance here who didn't fare very well. One actually had what did he have? He had what did the guy in New York have that he was using like a gun? There's a bent off piece or something.
Yeah.
However, he was in the stance and he got shot, and to which I said, well, what do you expect? Here's a guy in Canada, gets out mowing down all these people. Officer arrived, detective sees him. Here they are, squared up, ready to fire on each other, and the guy, shoot me, shoot me. The officer doesn't shoot. Then he acts like he's putting it back into his pocket. He does it 2 or 3 times and then aims again. The officer then still doesn't shoot because he's very observant watching this guy. Notice that there's a cell phone this guy's got. He's got a cell phone. He wants me to shoot him. Suicide by cop. To which the officer then says, really? Get on there. Get your behind down on the ground.
I'll let you get down on the ground for us, eh?
Very good. I'm sorry. I did the Ebonics version.
It wasn't Drake arresting.
So it went off. He was arrested, and so now let's just see, terrorist or not terrorist, bro?
Not terrorist.
Okay.
Not
So
yet.
right. So very quickly, why? Why not?
He's white.
Even in Canada?
If we're gonna not have terrorists here, we might as well make sure that they're all white. Eh?
I don't think that's it. I think that they're more proper. I mean, I'm going to tell you, he's not the first one. Many of the terrorists who were arrested as of late have not been killed. I can't think of one who's been killed. This is not the first time. I think it's good police. I just think it's good police work. I do. I think it's good police work, and I think this right here, and get ready for this, you guys in law enforcement. Don't mean anything by it, but where it applies, I do mean something by it. It just maybe, this law enforcement officer is not as afraid, of his life. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, in fear of my own life and safety. Now, it's not that he's Mr. Brawny and Mr. Bad Guy. It's just that he's using more his intellect, and he's responding by that more so than his trigger finger. He could have been killed, especially standing where he was. I thought that was a little bold for him. I don't know. And you guys who are officers, tell me, is it, if you see somebody, you got him, and the guy gets out of it. I mean, it seems to me like you would certainly take a little cover. You don't stand up, square your shoulders. I mean, nothing that I've ever learned about confronting someone with a firearm says, okay, you want to be a big target here.
Well, unless you clearly can see that they don't have a firearm.
Well, yeah, but I don't know when he picked that up. At the very least, where he was squaring. In other words, typically what you want to do is you take a side stance. You might use 2 hands, but you're like this. You know what I mean? Look, I can't do it now. I'm doing this for you guys watching me on Facebook. Don't ask me how I know it. I know. I'm trained. I know exactly how to take the stance. Even even for that matter, squatting, kneeling. You don't square up with it. Oh, hold it right there. You don't do that.
Like a range shooting.
Square. I mean, look, you don't look like a target. You know what I mean, with the square shoulders and the whole thing. You know, you want to be as little target as you possibly can, which is why you take a shoulder stance or a kneel stance.
Or tougher.
But he didn't. Look, I'm glad he's still with us. So you think he is a terrorist because, as of yet, we don't know if he's a Muslim?
Yeah, well, no, he's a terrorist, but he won't be called a terrorist because, you know, we haven't heard a tweet about him, and he's possibly more than likely white, being in that area.
Yeah.
Oh, no, here he is right here. Yeah, he's white. He's white. He's bald.
You really think that? I mean,
He's
how
not
could
a
you?
terrorist. 10 people dead, so what?
You go to New Orleans, you really can't.
He's just crazy. He's just a crazy
Well, I just think that I don't think that because I've been to Canada. I'm going to tell you you have bigotry in Canada as well, but not nearly as much as you have here. I mean, it is frowned upon by the citizenry there. Here, it's a badge of honor, especially if you're in Ocean Springs, it seems. I want to get some people in before the break, folks. Simple question: are there double standards of criminality? Is it, in other words, when someone commits a heinous act? Does it seem like it, and let's just keep it with the United States, there is a armed and dangerous doesn't mean the same thing in all circles. You know, is there a shoot to kill? Well, no, but not shoot. You always shoot to kill. Do you give the benefit of the doubt? I want you to go to our Facebook page and take a look at the post we made that was released by the Mobile police officers in and around the Saraland Waffle House involving the young lady, Kiki, I think her name is, and her arrest. I had some pretty stern things to say about that. I'll tell you whether I still feel that way. But take a look at it, whereby it is suggested that the young lady was in fact inebriated, even to the point of having to use a garbage can, one can argue, once she was arrested. Did it make a difference with how she was treated? A simple question. We're going to talk about that, but go and take a look at the video, and I must tell you that you're going to see it from different angles. Is the question here, you know, the fact that she's inebriated, that resulted in her arrest? And did the arrest, does that suggest that there was every reason in the world why she was handled the way she was and arrested the way she was? Does it justify that to you, is my question. We've got that and a whole lot more coming up. Coming back, we're going to talk to Monica and Herbie and the rest of you guys standing in line. I promise you, we're going to get right to you. 228-896-9455. We'll be back.
The Jackson Advocate newspaper has been the voice of black Mississippians since 1938.